Hello, everyone. Let me start by asking you a simple question. Why is it so hard to believe in ourselves? We live in a world that's constantly measuring us by numbers, by titles, by likes, by followers. From the moment we're born, we're compared. He walked earlier, she learned faster, he made more, she got promoted, and slowly, without realizing it, we start looking out there for validation instead of looking in here. But here's the thing. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Well, believing in yourself is not about arrogance or overconfidence. It's not about walking into a room and thinking you're better than everyone else. It's about walking into a room and not feeling the need to compare yourself to anyone at all. That kind of belief doesn't come from accolades, titles, or how others see you. It comes from within. Many of us wait for someone else to believe in us before we allow ourselves to. We wait for a boss to say, you got what it takes, or for a friend to tell us we're talented, or for the world to notice us before we notice ourselves. But the truth is, if your belief is based on other people's validation, it's not real belief. It's borrowed confidence. And borrowed confidence always runs out when people stop clapping. The most authentic kind of belief is the one that doesn't need applause to feel real. It's quiet, it's steady. It's the voice that says, I may not have all the answers, but I trust myself enough to take the next step. That's the kind of belief that carries you through the days when things don't go right, when you fail, when you're rejected, when everything feels uncertain. That belief keeps you grounded, not because you know how it will all work out, but because you know you won't give up on yourself along the way. And let's be honest, that's rare. Because believing in yourself means being willing to face the parts of you that are scared, insecure, or uncertain, and still choosing to move forward. It's not the absence of doubt. It's the presence of trust. Trust that you can figure it out, that you're worthy of taking up space and pursuing something bigger. When you start to believe in yourself, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly gets easier, but because your relationship with yourself becomes stronger. You become your own source of strength. You stop waiting for someone to choose you. You start showing up differently in how you speak, in how you act, in what you tolerate, and in what you chase. You begin to align your life with your values, not your fears. And that's where real confidence comes from, not pretending you have it all together, but knowing that even when you don't, you're still enough. You don't need to have it all figured out to take a step forward. You just need to trust that you're worth betting on. Belief doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It shows up in small decisions, quiet courage, and a mindset that says, I belong here. I can do this. And I'm not going to quit on myself. That's what it means to truly believe in yourself, not because someone else said you could, because deep down, you did. From the moment we're born, we're placed into a system that teaches us to measure our worth by how we compare to others. As children, we're praised when we perform well and corrected when we fall short, often in comparison to someone else. Look how well your sister did, or why can't you be more like him? These seemingly harmless remarks begin to plant a dangerous seed, the belief that our value depends on how we stack up against others. Slowly and often unconsciously, we begin to internalize the idea that validation must come from the outside. As we grow older, this pattern becomes even more deeply ingrained. School grades, test scores, performance reviews, social media likes, they all reinforce a culture of constant comparison. We become so accustomed to looking outward for approval that we lose sight of our inner compass. Instead of asking, is this meaningful to me? We ask, will this impress them? Instead of asking, am I proud of myself? We ask, do they think I'm good enough? This mindset is exhausting because it places our self-worth in the hands of people who might never truly understand us. And when we don't receive the validation we crave, we begin to question ourselves. We start to believe that we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not attractive enough, not enough, period. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can ever satisfy a person who doesn't feel worthy from within. It's important to realize that the world's approval is not a reliable foundation for self-belief. People's opinions are constantly shifting, often based on their own insecurities, projections, or preferences. Trying to earn your worth through their eyes is like building a house on sand, unstable and temporary. You could be doing your best and still be misunderstood. You could succeed and still be criticized. If your confidence depends on applause, you'll live in fear of silence. The most powerful thing you can do is begin to notice how much of your identity has been shaped by the need to be approved. Once you become aware of it, you can start to shift. You can begin to ask yourself deeper questions. What do I value? What does success look like for me? Not through someone else's lens, but through mine. Breaking free from this approval-seeking mindset isn't easy. It takes awareness, honesty, and a willingness to stand on your own. But the freedom that comes with it is worth everything. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting authenticity in your work, in your relationships, in your life. The truth is, you've always been worthy. You just got so used to looking outside that you forgot how to look in. When you stop measuring yourself by others' standards and start honoring your own voice, something powerful happens. You stop performing and you start becoming. But the opposite is also true. When you constantly break your own promises, when you say you'll start something and don't, when you set goals and abandon them without trying, when you give up the moment it gets uncomfortable, you teach yourself that your word doesn't mean much. Over time, that erodes self-belief. You start doubting not because you're incapable, but because deep down, you don't trust yourself to follow through. That's why building belief is less about big dramatic actions and more about small, consistent ones. It's waking up early because you said you would. It's applying for the opportunity even though you're scared. It's making the difficult calls, setting the boundaries, showing up to the gym, finishing the project not for perfection, but for progress. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you tell yourself, I can count on me. That's how belief is built. And yes, there will be setbacks. You'll miss days, fall short, fall off. That's part of the process. But the key is not to chase perfection. It's to keep coming back. When you get back up, even after falling, that's where confidence is forged. Not in the flawless days, but in the messy ones where you keep going anyway. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is seeing belief not as a feeling, but as a behavior. You may not feel confident. That's okay. Act with integrity anyway. You may not feel ready. Act with courage anyway, because action builds identity. The more you act like someone who believes in themselves, the more you become that person. In the end, self-belief is a choice you make daily. It's not about waiting to feel ready or worthy. It's about doing the work one step at a time until your actions start to speak louder than your doubts. You won't build belief overnight, but if you keep showing up for yourself, eventually you'll look back and realize you've become someone who doesn't just hope things will work out, but knows you can handle whatever comes. In a world obsessed with being the best, the fastest, the smartest, the most successful, it's easy to believe that we need to be exceptional in every way to matter. We're constantly told that we need to stand out, crush the competition, or dominate the space. But here's a different perspective. You don't need to be the best in the world. You need to be the best for the world. What does that mean? It means shifting the focus from achievement to contribution, from status to service. Being the best in the world is about comparison. It puts you in a constant race against others, measuring your value by how far ahead you are. But being the best for the world is about alignment. Using your gifts, your voice, your unique perspective to make a difference in a way only you can. It's not about beating others, it's about being true to yourself and creating impact that matters. We all have a unique role to play, a specific set of strengths, stories, and scars that no one else has. And when we stop trying to fit into someone else's version of success, we open the door to a much more fulfilling path. One where success isn't defined by titles, money, or recognition, but by purpose, contribution, and integrity. Here's the truth. Someone out there doesn't need the best in the world. They just need you. Your perspective, your energy, your way of doing things. And if you're too busy trying to mimic what others are doing, you'll miss the opportunity to be who you're meant to be. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real people. People who care deeply, who show up honestly, and who lead with heart. When you embrace the idea of being the best for the world, everything changes. You stop chasing what looks impressive and start chasing what feels meaningful. You stop performing for approval and start living in alignment with your values. And ironically, that's when you become magnetic. because authenticity is rare and people are drawn to it. This mindset also takes the pressure off. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know everything. You just need to bring your whole self to what you do with humility, with passion, and with a desire to serve. That's what creates trust. That's what builds connection. That's what makes a lasting difference. Being the best for the world isn't a competition. It's a calling. It's not about being above anyone. It's about lifting others as you grow. And when you focus on contribution instead of comparison, you start to lead in a way that's sustainable, fulfilling, and deeply impactful. You may never be number one on someone else's list, but if you show up with heart, with purpose, and with integrity, you'll be exactly what someone needed. And that's more powerful than any trophy or title could ever be. Doubt is often misunderstood. Most people see it as a weakness, a sign that they're not cut out for something. But the truth is, doubt is part of being human. It shows up whenever we care deeply, whenever we step outside our comfort zone, whenever we try something that matters. It's not a flaw, it's a signal. A signal that we're growing, that we're doing something unfamiliar, that we're stretching into new territory. Even the most successful people, the ones we admire, quote, and look up to, experience doubt. They've questioned their choices, feared failure, and wondered if they were good enough. The difference is they didn't let doubt make their decisions for them. They didn't wait for it to disappear before taking action. They felt the fear, heard the inner critic, and moved forward anyway. That's courage. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. We often think that confidence has to come first, that we need to feel 100% certain before we start. But real confidence is often the result of action, not the prerequisite. You take the step, you stumble, you learn, and over time, belief grows. It's in the doing that you begin to realize what you're capable of. Waiting until you feel ready might seem safe, but more often than not, it becomes an excuse for standing still. The people who grow the most are the ones who are willing to show up even when they feel uncertain. They don't need all the answers. They just need to trust that they'll figure it out along the way. That trust, that internal resilience is more valuable than any degree, skill, or strategy. It's what keeps you moving when nothing else makes sense. Doubt is not your enemy. Paralysis is. When doubt whispers, "What if you fail?" you get to respond, "What if I learn?" When it says, "What if they judge you?" you can say, "What if I inspire them?" To keep showing up so consistently that your actions become louder than your fears. And here's something powerful. Every time you act in spite of doubt, you build evidence. You create proof for yourself that you can do hard things, that you can face uncertainty and not be broken by it, that you can stand in discomfort and still move forward. Over time, that evidence becomes belief. Not just belief in your abilities, but belief in your worth. So if you're feeling doubt right now, good. It means you're on the edge of something meaningful. It means you're not settling. It means you care. Let that be a sign, not a stop sign. Let it remind you that you're in the process of becoming. Doubt doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It often means you're finally on the right one. Most of us don't realize how much of an impact we have on the people around us. We think we need to be experts, leaders, or influencers to inspire someone else, but often it's the quiet example that leaves the strongest impression. When you see someone being authentic, owning their flaws, and still choosing to show up confidently, it resonates. It reminds you that maybe you don't need to have it all figured out either. This is why believing in yourself isn't just a personal journey, it's a ripple effect. Every time you choose to trust yourself, you model what it looks like to walk with integrity. Every time you keep going when things get tough, you show others that resilience is possible. Every time you take a risk, you prove that fear doesn't have to be the end of the story. Without even saying a word, you become an example of what's possible when someone chooses courage over comfort. Think about the people who've inspired you the most. Were they perfect? Probably not. But something about the way they believed in themselves made you feel like you could do it too. Maybe it was a teacher who saw potential in you before you saw it in yourself. Maybe it was a friend who chased their dream without waiting for permission. Maybe it was someone who failed but owned it with grace and kept going. What they all had in common wasn't perfection, it was belief, that quiet, powerful trust in themselves that gave others strength. And you have that power too. When you believe in yourself, you raise the standard not just for your life, but for the people around you. You help others question their limits. You create a space where others can show up fully without masks or fear. You give others a reason to believe in their own potential simply by living out yours. So don't underestimate your influence. The way you treat yourself matters. The way you carry yourself matters. You never know who's watching, who's listening, who's silently taking notes and saying, if they can do it, maybe I can too. Self-belief isn't just about achieving your goals. It's about unlocking the potential in others by fully stepping into your own. When you walk in belief, you lead by example, and that's one of the most powerful ways to change the world. One person at a time. Starting with you.